Welcome to Proctor360's final live webcast session. We've got just a couple of days left in our online public offering on Start Engine. And today I've got Ganga and Kranti, the CEO and CTO of Proctor360, here with us for this live chat session. And we're going to talk primarily about how we plan to go forward from the end of the public offering now to the rollout plans and the pre-production process for getting this 360-degree testing platform to market. Ganga, Kranti, thanks for joining us today. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Doing good, Scott. Thanks for making this happen. Let us get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say right at the top of the webcast, for anybody who's tuning in now, there's a live chat feature on the YouTube page, and if you have any questions while we're talking, just go ahead and post those questions or comments right there on the live chat. We'll be watching that, and we'll try to answer those questions for you as we see them. There's a little bit of a delay for a live stream, so don't worry if we don't answer it immediately, but we'll get through as many as possible, and if we missed you when the question goes by, go ahead and ask again. But we want to make sure that we answer any questions that interested investors have about our online public offering, the company itself, and also the technology that Proctor360 has been developing. As I said, the online public offering at Start Engine is ending on April 30th. That's in just a little under 3 days now. This is the third day, and this will be our final live webcast. But let's talk for a minute now, while we've got people listening, about the next steps. We've raised more than triple our minimum goal for investment through Start Engine, which was to allow you to put an initial manufacturing order in for the 360-degree testing cams that you designed, right, Kranti?
Yep. So the initial minimum was around 10,000, right? So that allowed us to go into production. Anything more than we raise allows us to service customers that are on board waiting, right? So so far in the production process, we've been talking to manufacturers, going back and forth, figuring out what they're capable of doing and how much they're going to be able to produce for us. So currently we're in that process. We're talking to different manufacturers as well as producers that are able to produce the hardware components as well as the electrical components. And we have a rough timeline of about 2 to 3 months where we expect to have the final produced headsets ready to go. So right now, as we're getting more information from these manufacturers, we're putting together a detailed timeline, figuring out exactly what day we'll have these components, when they'll be assembled together and when they'll be shipped over to the U.S. at our facility to be able to send out.
Okay, so you've already got, as we've discussed many times in our live webcast, and it's on the offering page as well, you've already designed working prototypes of these testing cams. So this process, just for anybody who doesn't understand how manufacturing works, once you've got a design prototype that's working, there's a bunch of interim processes that happen before manufacturing starts, right? So all of the molds and all of the actual circuitry that's going to be produced in a manufacturing setting, in a factory, all of the tooling for that has to be done, and all of that has to have specific types of design work done in order to just get the tooling and the circuitry design and all of that put together, right?
Yeah. Even the wireframe that you have up right now, that's mainly the components that we're designing. That's the headband that is going to house the 360 camera, where that's going to sit along with the regular components of a headset, like the ear cups and everything like that. So that's the main component we're designing, and we've been going back and forth with manufacturer discussing how this is possible and when this will be able to be produced.
Right, and so you're looking at, like you said, so from the point at which you place an order for the initial manufacturing run, the lead time then before delivery of the first shipment, then you're looking at, you think 2 to 3 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right, Scott. And in addition to that, it also takes little time for testing this, the system as a whole for its robustness, so that when we are shipping and some handling and other things are there, we wanted to make sure it is shock proof and we do not have any hiccups. So those are some of the logistics and also some of the testing, which we will be doing once we get trial production from the manufacturer.
Right, and a lot of that is basically the quality control and quality assurance stage of a manufacturing process. That's what comes at the end to make sure that the product that was produced is actually going to be effective and was produced as designed, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this is important, and we've talked about this in some live webcasts before, but it's important to note that these headsets are going to be used over and over and over again. When a tester decides to take an online exam, they register for the exam on the Proctor360 site, and then the headset comes to them in the mail with the software they need to use or the paper-based testing materials, whichever type of test it is. They take the test with the headset, and then when they're finished, they actually just send the headset back to you guys. So it's important that the manufacturing is done right so that these headsets have a long shelf life.
Yeah, we try to make
the process
go ahead, as thorough as possible. So we try to make sure that not only does the tech work, but we also tested the integrity of the actual use of the headset. So it can't just be, it's not good enough for just one use or one good use. It has to be repeated. It has to handle shipping back and forth. It has to handle users, some who may use it roughly or some who may use it gently, right? So
Yeah.
it has to be tested for all of those different cases. So we tried to do that as much as possible and make sure that the integrity wasn't compromised in any way.
That's a good point, and I'm glad you guys are thinking about that, because just as you were talking about it, of course, it makes sense that when you have the convenience of being able to take an online exam from the comfort of home, that also means that headset could end up laying on your kitchen table. Your 3-year-old could run by and knock it over or spill something on it. These things have to be durable if they're going to be used in remote locations like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the headsets, and that's part of where we're going now. This is what you guys have got to do in terms of getting the manufacturing started for these headsets. But that's only part of the platform. There's also the software that's involved in collecting the streaming video and integrating it with the user's computer and the testing software they're going to use. So what is the state of that part of the product right now for anybody who's listening and might be wondering?
Yeah, so we've been able to show that it works and it's able to function with the 360 camera. We're working with a couple different vendors of the software. It's nice to work with a couple different ones, mainly because some schools may prefer a certain type, or some exams or exam companies might prefer a certain type of software, and some software allows or has more features than others, like facial recognition, stuff like that the testing company wants to see. So it's nice that we're focusing mainly on the hardware, but we also have we're focusing mainly on the hardware so it can be used with a bunch of different software platforms. But we're also making sure that the software platform is able to give us exactly what we need. We want all these outputs and metrics for our headset when it's used.
Well, that's fantastic. So, that's great to hear, because it sounds like what you're saying is that the actual testing software, the software that administers the exam, is really by request of the e-learning institution or the training organization or the college that's offering the exam that test taker wants to take. So if you were locked into one type of testing software, then you might not be able to access all of the market then.
Yeah, that's another great reason why we do deal with a lot, because we have to deal with like the hardware and the logistics of sending it out. But that's one place where we do offer our customers a lot of variability and options that they may want. They can choose exactly what they need at the price point that they want.
So that's fantastic. When you're talking about getting initial traction, when you're talking about penetrating the market as quickly as possible. And for a startup, I'm a startup consultant, so I have to think about these kinds of things. When you talk about trying to penetrate the market as quickly as possible as a startup, the last thing you want to do is create any kind of limitations or impediments for any company or customer that's interested in your product to being able to adopt it. So it sounds like what Proctor360 is doing is sort of a plug-and-play solution for any e-learning organization or certifying body that wants to offer their exams with 360-degree secure testing.
That's right, Scott. We wanted to give various options to the customers so that we can play a key role in the market, because there are some constraints in the current market. Which convenience is one of the biggest challenge, and cost of the education is also one of the the big factor, especially in American, the market. So we wanted to make sure that number one, we are reducing the cost, and number two, we are providing a lot of convenience, and both can be achieved by providing the required, solution to the education provider, e-learning, provider. That's why our vision is to provide education and exam in a box, so that it can be a cost effective, and also it can be a robust solution for somebody to reduce at least 25% of their education cost.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And talking about the cost of education, the cost of the technology, it's not just the student. Of course, the cost of the student is extremely important, but also the cost of an institution to adopt any kind of online testing platform or computer-based testing, because Proctor360's 360-degree testing platform can actually be used with paper-based exams too, right?
That's absolutely right. So we're providing all the solution to have the paper-based, computer-based, and also hybrid, such as some exams will cover the paper-based, and some exams are computer-based, and some organizations provide both of them. So we provide end-to-end solution that way.
That's fantastic, and actually it leads me to my next topic of conversation, because you guys have got sort of an interesting little announcement that you can make now, if I'm not mistaken, that as of May 1st, George Mason University has actually agreed to take part in a pilot test program for the Proctor360 platform, right?
That's absolutely right, Scott.
And that will be, as I understand it, a paper-based exam that they're going to offer their students for one course in order to test out the effectiveness of the 360-degree secure online testing platform.
That's true.
So the fact that they're willing to do this, the fact that George Mason University is wanting to be an early adopter, they're wanting to try this product out right away, and they're going to be doing this with the prototype headsets that you already have available, which is interesting. It shows how much the e-learning institutions and colleges and certifying organizations are really looking for ways to administer secure exams remotely. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway I get from that piece of information. I mean, it's certainly, from a marketing standpoint, it's excellent that they're interested at this stage, and that as they see the effectiveness of it, they're going to be interested in expanding to more exams and using the Proctor360 system once it's in full production. That's great, but what it really shows is that the marketplace right now, in terms of the colleges, the e-learning institutions, the certifying organizations, they are really looking for solutions. They are desperate for a solution to be able to offer any kind of exam that they may have remotely to as many students as possible. I mean, that's the incredible part of this. This shows just how interested the industry is in what Proctor360 is doing.
Right. There is no solution in the industry right now to provide the secure exam delivery, unfortunately. There are a lot of blind spots, and if you go to website, you can find out how to cheat with online existing, one camera system. So that's where we have a unique opportunity here, and we're trying to make sure that our customers understand what is required, and also the students understand what is required, and also there is a big population of professional test delivery for various trade schools. I mean, various trade exams, such as some simple realtor exams, or pharmacy tech in the medical world, or project management and things like that. There are a lot of exams, and we have a lot of use cases not only in US but across the nation, across the globe. And also, we are already having 3 customers waiting for this product and the solution. So we are trying to get into the production as soon as possible so that we can really get going on this.
Well, that goes to something we've been saying in our updates to the Start Engine page lately that I want to bring up just really quickly. I don't want us to get too far off course because I think that it's incredible what's happening right now with Proctor360 exiting the Start Engine offering and getting ready to roll out the product. But the idea that there are different types of exams and different e-learning institutions, different professional certifications. They all have different types of exams that they need proctored in a certain way. And the only solution for being able to meet the needs of many different types of exams, whether it's computer-based or paper-based or, like you said, hybrid, up to this point has been live testing centers. But as you know, Ganga, you operate live testing centers yourself. You've been doing that for over 15 years. And we were just talking before we went live, where you were telling me how busy you are on Saturdays. I made the mistake of asking you if you were enjoying your weekend. But of course, Saturdays are your busiest days at live testing centers. Because that's when people have free time. But of course, it also means that there aren't always slots available to take an exam, whether it's paper-based or computer-based. If it has to happen at a live center, you've got to find a center who's got an opening when you're available to take the test, right?
That's absolutely right, because one of the important things is most of the people are working, Monday to Friday. And even if you are studying on your own with any online school, also you're almost working. Yeah. So the fact is, people wanted to have this exam to be conveniently delivered during the weekend or evening kind of thing. So with the current system of brick and mortar testing or even the university setting, unfortunately, they cannot deliver evenings or weekends. And Proctor360 is going to provide a solution. You can take the exams after your kids go to bed so that, where awake, they can right. deliver 24/7 exams for you.
Right. You've put the kids to bed, you've washed the dishes, and now when you've actually got some peace and quiet from the comfort of home, you can take an exam from any location at any time. I mean, that's that level of convenience. And we talked about this with Don on our last live webcast, Don Kastner, our Chief Operating Officer, about how convenience is a part of the growth of a lot of these major new startups, from everything from Dollar Shave Club to companies like Netflix or Amazon that achieve just explosive growth because they offer consumers a convenience. And with live testing, that just runs, right, in the face of that. It's not convenient. It's actually not even really meeting the needs of everyone who needs to take proctored exams. And now Proctor360, of course, has got a solution for that. But getting to what you were saying about the need to produce these headsets and actually get to market as quickly as possible and having customers waiting. Okay, we've talked about this a little bit before. We've posted about it in our updates. But for anybody who's tuning in for maybe the first time on one of our webcasts or who's a more recent follower to our Start Engine campaign, as Ganga mentioned, you've got 3 companies waiting for the product to just be ready to meet the demand they can give them. I think we've talked in the past about 3,000 to 6,000 exams per month from customers that are just wanting to the product to be ready. They just need you to be able to meet that volume need. And that's what the point of this Start Engine campaign has been about, in raising enough investment to produce the headsets to meet the need that's already there. So we're talking about revenue in the very near term. As Kranti said, we're looking at probably 2 or 3 months to get a manufacturing order done, and that's going to be true whether it's a few hundred headsets or whether it's 10,000 headsets. The only difference is how much of that volume can we take advantage of with that first manufacturing run, and that depends on the number of investors who invest in this offering. So there's only a couple of days left, and it's important that we stress that while we have achieved 3 times as much as our minimum goal was for this raise, any new investors we receive at this point in these last couple of days, any investment at this point is just strengthening our position. It just allows Proctor360 to produce more and get into the market faster in a bigger way. Because we're already talking about 3,000 to 6,000 exams a month just right out of the gate. And that's still just a very small portion of a very large market. And Ganga, as you said, we're not just looking at the American market. Of course, the American market is the hungriest for online testing in terms of products like this, maybe at this moment. But the global computer-based testing industry is a $42 billion industry. And when you have a remote solution that's not like live testing centers, which is inherently local, we've got a remote solution, which is a global solution. You can reach any of those customers, essentially.
That's absolutely right. One of the company we are signing up wanted to have the test to be delivered for Japanese. So
really,
there are
wow,
yeah,
fantastic.
There is no tool for them right now to have this kind of exams to be delivered, because the international proctors, they do not know how to do and things like that. Certainly there are some barriers. So we wanted to cover it up. And also, in addition to that, not only the proctoring services, Scott, as I said, we're also extending this service for the interview process, because interview itself is a workflow of somebody getting tested, number one, then number two, getting the real the interview by online interview by somebody, and then third step is walking into the door of corporate world. How do we know that the same person with the same biometrics is doing the same thing? So that's why we are trying to extend this solution even for interview process.
That's fantastic, and that you made a good point there. I think we were talking a couple of weeks back about that issue, that companies spend a lot of money and time and effort to choose the right candidates for professional positions, and when a job requires a professional certification, you need to know that the person you're interviewing is the person who took the exam, who took the entrance test, who got the certification. You need to know that that's the person who's actually applying for the job. And when you don't have a system that actually records the test taker while they're taking the exam and verifies the identity, then you really have no way of verifying that, or not any easy way of verifying that, right?
That's absolutely right.
And do you
Because
find
nowadays online is providing a lot of these options, because people don't have to come multiple times to the company location. Rather, they can do all those things online. And as you know, most of the people are even working from home. So obviously, why can't we do this securely and provide authenticity even for future reference, that somebody has gone through this process securely, and then we're able to have some kind of checks and balances in place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There are even, it just reminded me, there H&R Block. I'm based in Kansas City, and H&R Block, which is a major tax services company in the United States, is based out of Kansas City. And I was talking to somebody who was in HR there a couple of months ago about the types of tests that they give their candidates at the senior management and executive levels when they're applying for a job. And they actually give them, it's like a personality exam or personality assessment, I would say. But it's not exactly like the kind of personality test you might find in a magazine or something like that. It's more about determining your style of working and the way you interact with your coworkers and things like that. But it's a scientifically curated exam that or test that they have their senior management candidates and executive candidates take. Right now, that test is administered online. You really don't know who's taking that test when you go. You can go from the online test, and they pass the first level of consideration, and then you have an in-person interview, and maybe the person's offered the job, but you really don't have any way of verifying that that's the person who took that assessment. So, and these are huge companies that are using assessments like this, computer-based assessments, where they're opening themselves to a liability because they don't have any way to verify that the person who took that assessment is the person who ended up giving the job.
That's right, Scott. And there is, because internet, one thing, enabled us to work from home across the globe. So obviously the security is the key part of it. So while the technology does its job, but we need to make sure that there is a consistency of what we do. That's where these kind of solutions, such as Proctor360, is going to provide. Even for the same thing goes for the education also, because we wanted to make sure that the remote learning is growing, as you said, $92 billion e-learning, and it's bound to grow every year. So there is no limitation for these things to grow. But at the same time, when you are educated, when you have certain degree or the professional certification, we wanted to provide a digital badge for the exam, in a way that if somebody need to verify after 3 months or 6 months that so and so Scott has taken the exam or not, they can securely get into our blockchain environment and verify that everything is done properly and they have proper authentication and everything is clear and clean. And that's how we do in brick and mortar testing right now. If so and so XYZ comes to our test center and they have the exam to be delivered, and after 3 months I get a call from Castle Worldwide or Pearson View asking, saying that, hey, can you send me the video footage of so and so guy who has taken the exam or not? So we are able
Right.
to securely take that video tape and then send it to the authorized person, so that he can verify along with the log information and the biometrics we captured, the passport or driver's license, so that that verification can be done. So the idea behind all these things is to provide the required biometrics, take the required biometrics, and make sure that we are providing the fair and fairness in exam delivery. That's what we are trying to do, so that people who are working hard and studying day and night, they are being really well regarded, as against somebody is trying to cheat.
Right. If cheaters are getting the same rewards as the people who've studied hard and have actually learned what they need to know in order to pass an exam, it starts to threaten the credibility of the exam itself, especially when it comes to professional certifications. And unfortunately, there's a lot of this in professional certifications. You see people with IT certifications who you just can't even imagine how they even pass that certification test, because they don't know anything about the area of IT that that they're being offered a job in. It's always surprising to me, when you talk about fairness, it's the person who really knows their area of study having to compete with someone who may have cheated on the exam to get the same certification, and so it dilutes the value of any kind of certification or proctored exam when cheating is allowed to occur. So when we talk about fairness, I mean, that resonates very heavily with me. And I think anybody who's ever been not just in an online learning situation, but in colleges in modern times, I think that resonates with a lot of people, especially now with this Operation Varsity Blues scandal that's been in the news over the last month with the elite Hollywood actresses and wealthy individuals who've been paying to help their children cheat the college exam system. For every student that gets into college that way, that's one student who worked hard and played by the rules and took the exam fairly, who didn't get into college. And I think that solutions like Proctor360s are the only way we're ever going to get around that kind of insidious behavior.
Scott, it is funny that you brought that about the Varsity Blues, and the biggest challenge there was no video footage. That means, there was no biometric or anything captured there, and somebody else was taking for somebody else, and
Right.
they were able to score it. That's where we wanted to provide a digital badge with Proctor360, so that we know exactly who is the person who is taking the exam, and then that's the person who is supposed to get the scores or the results, or whatever is required. So that's authenticity with the digital badging we wanted to provide.
And hopefully, once Proctor360 has captured a large portion of the market, people aren't going to be able to get away with these kinds of scams. So all the more reason why a product like this is absolutely necessary to the future of e-learning and really just higher education in general. And that we've we got to point out, and unfortunately our COO, Don Kastner, couldn't be with us today for this live session, but he's the former president of an online university. Even before he was the founder of Proctor360, a very successful online testing platform of the old school variety that uses just a single laptop cam. But, he's involved with Proctor360. I would imagine he understands the value of fairness and in testing and in validating and verifying that the person who took the test did so fairly, and that it was the person who's actually going to be given credit for it in the end, or else he wouldn't be involved.
That's
and I think
right.
we could
Exactly.
say,
Yeah, of course, because he has a ridiculous amount of credibility, and he's he calls himself, his name is Don. He calls himself the Don of testing because he's a big deal in the industry. He knows it, and everybody else knows it too. So he's the one who was as you mentioned, the previous founder and CEO of Proctor360, one of the biggest players in the market, and he had a successful exit. And I think he was looking for something new to kind of, he saw where that market was lacking and what needed to be done. And, when we presented this technology, he was on board from day one. So he was really excited that we'd come up with a solution. He said that, early on they were trying to figure out a system that would be able to do this, but technology at that time, there wasn't 360 cameras were either too big or weren't able to integrate properly. Now we're in a time where that's easily that's easily done. So he saw the value from the moment we presented it to him, and he wanted to come on board, and we're glad to have him, of course.
Of course, absolutely, and it's not only because of his expertise, but also the validation with somebody like that who clearly understands the online testing market and has delivered value to investors previously with tech startups involved in online testing. For him to be on board, it should be a major bullet point for anybody considering investing in Proctor360, as well as Ganga's many years of experience in live testing centers. I mean, you really have two halves of the whole when it comes to computer-based testing, just in those two guys being involved with this company and recognizing its value. And now with the news that George Mason University is going to be doing a pilot program with the prototypes headsets for one of their exams, it just shows that colleges and universities and online learning organizations, they're all looking for a solution that they can trust. And trust is key, because they could do what a lot of e-learning online testing platforms do with just the laptop webcam, but they know it's not secure. They know that there are too many ways, as you mentioned, Kranti, to circumvent that system, to beat it, from just putting Post-it notes outside the field of view of the webcam on the laptop to somebody walking up behind the laptop and just giving you the answers. So, colleges and certifying organizations and e-learning institutions, they're all looking for a solution that they can trust, because they do want to be able to offer online testing for all of their classes, for all of their certifications. But until a product like Proctor360 comes along, they really haven't had a chance to give that a full shot. And the fact that George Mason University is participating in this pilot program, I think, is a great validation that should make any interested investor recognize that this is not just a sales pitch. We're talking about companies that are waiting in line to use this technology now, and the people that are investing in Proctor360 right at this moment, right in this offering, which closes in just a couple of days, you are helping us to get that product to market as quickly as possible. Looks like we have a question here from Rajesh on the YouTube live chat. I just want to read it real quick. I'm not sure if you guys are watching the chat screen there. It says, it's a great tool for fair assessment for tests and remote interviews. What are the next steps in terms of timeline, product launch, customer projections, and the ability to scale? So we talked a little bit about that at the top of the webcast, but go ahead, Kranti, and talk us through that just in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so as for projections, which was the first question, and timeline, so right now we expect to launch in 2 to 3 months. Currently, we're talking to a lot of manufacturers that are able to source the required components and provide that to us. We have hardware components as well as electrical components that we need sourced and assembled. So we're getting that all together. We're figuring out the details and putting together a detailed timeline now based on the capabilities of these different facilities. The product launch, like I said, is going to be in 2 to 3 months. Currently, we have 3 customers on board waiting. So when I say customers, I mean these are actual companies with hundreds of tests to deliver to their students. So the actual number of tests that we're going to be delivering are, I think, 600 to 1,000. There's like a huge variation there depending on, initially they're going to have us starting out with a small percentage, and eventually we're going to be taking on their full load. And then the ability to scale. There are a lot of companies that use online testing, or that have experienced problems with cheating, or they're companies that use live testing in terms of a testing center, but they want to move to online testing to provide their customers the more convenient option. So the ability to scale is huge.
Yeah, I mean, so there, really, when we talk about the current industry projections of remote testing or online testing, just that portion of the computer-based testing market is projected to grow to $10 billion over the next 5 years. And that's without taking into account all of the certifying bodies and exam situations where they currently are only available in live testing centers or paper-based testing situations, because they don't trust the security of online testing the way it is now. So when you talk about Proctor360 and the growth of the market, Proctor360, and this is why they're calling it a potential game changer, because it now offers all of that security that some organizations and some learning institutions have been holding back from doing online testing or fully adopting it because they didn't feel it was secure enough. So the ability to scale there, as you said, Kranti, is virtually limitless. You know, we're talking about a industry that's tens of billions of dollars annually, and it's projected to keep growing. And as Ganga pointed out earlier, the entire e-learning market just right now globally, we're talking about $92 billion. Yeah, you mentioned, that the initial 600 to 1,000 tests you're talking about, is that a monthly number?
That's an annual number. But, as we sign more people on, that number is going to increase ridiculously. Even
Right.
for online testing now, they deliver, I think, over 1 million exams. And then even looking at testing centers, they deliver probably over 1 million as well. So
you're talking about the pilot program, the number of exams that would come out of that?
No, I'm talking about the number of tests that are actually delivered by online exams. So right now,
right, okay.
Yeah, a company like Proctor360 or that does a single webcam testing, they probably deliver over 1 million exams, and that's a system that can be cheated. So, and even testing centers, they deliver exams that are over 1 million a year. So the potential for those exams to move online is huge. So there's a huge ability to scale here.
Right. So we're in terms of the ability to scale in the marketplace, it's virtually limitless. So what it really comes down to is how quickly can Proctor360 achieve growth. And that finally comes down to investing in an offering like this. We've only got a couple of days left in this offering, but any final investors we get during this time period allows Proctor360 to produce more headsets. It allows them to get the platform up and take advantage of more of that testing volume more quickly. So it's not a question of of how much scalability is there within the marketplace. There's plenty of room to grow into the marketplace. It's gathering the investment in order to start taking the money in. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right, Ganga?
That's right, Scott. And in addition to that, we have gone through this Title 3 option is to give the opportunity for friends and families, in a way that, they can invest at low price of, getting the shares. And as you know, Amazon and other companies lift stories, people are becoming, making, good money with the initial investment, and given the huge potential of market, and we wanted to extend this offer initially to some of our, people, and then the accredited and non-accredited investors can do that. I'm sure you can talk about some of the stories what has happened with respect to Amazon and all, but this is a very good opportunity for somebody to get into and make initial investment.
Well, I will, since you mentioned it, Ganga. If you've been following our Start Engine campaign page, Proctor360 mentioned in today's update an article that I just published on LinkedIn, where I actually talk about the people that have had the vision to invest in these companies that had that explosive growth. Okay, we're talking about Amazon, Netflix, companies like this, where the price of getting into those companies, just in terms of a share price, we could just be talking about at the IPO level, where they're publicly traded stocks, was a few bucks a share, but you had to have the vision to see where those companies were going to go. And the people that did, who spent just a few $1,000s on Amazon stock at its IPO, that stock would be worth millions of dollars right now. And Fortune magazine's actually, covered a specific guy who spent just a couple of $1,000s on stock in Amazon, early on at the IPO level, and that stock value grew to over $2 million. In order to be one of those people, you have to have the vision to see the potential for a product, okay? You can't be looking at just right now, and you certainly can't be just looking at yesterday or only at products that you think you might be interested in. You have to look at whether or not there's a need in the market. You have to look at the size of the market, and then you have to ask yourself whether or not there's an opportunity for continued growth. Okay. Now, as that relates to Proctor360, we're talking again for about a $42 billion computer-based testing market. Everything is going towards convenience. Everything is going towards online, and computer-based testing is going that direction as well. The industry analysts are saying this. This is not just us. You can go to learninglight.com. There are links on our updates on Start Engine to Learning Light articles. These are industry analysts that have talked about the direction that computer-based testing is going, with everything going towards online and the move towards convenience, with companies like Amazon, where now people are getting their groceries in the mail. It's not just books anymore. Companies like Netflix, where now people went from getting DVDs in the mail to then they didn't even want the DVDs. They just wanted the movies streamed to them. Everything is about convenience. Everything is about digital delivery. And with the computer-based testing model, because of the problems that previous companies had with being able to offer secure exam taking, this industry is still stuck having to use live testing centers, and now there's an opportunity. Now there's a product. Now Proctor360 is coming to market with a truly secure exam delivery system, more secure than anything that's been out there before. So when you talk about room to grow, you talk about demand, Proctor360 has it all. I mean, they absolutely do. And if you want to be one of those guys who has that success story, who says, I invested early on in Amazon, or I invested early on in Netflix when it was only a few bucks a share, you have to have that vision to ask those questions, and when you get the right answers, the answers I just gave, you have to be willing to take action and take it, and make an investment. I mean, I get excited about this because if you wanted to invest at a seed funding stage in a company like Facebook, or Snapchat or Instagrams, people, businesses, companies that I mentioned that have had explosive growth, and I talk about them in that article on LinkedIn. If you wanted to invest at a seed funding level with any of those companies, you wouldn't have been able to if you were not an accredited investor. That means you had to be worth $1 million, or you had to make at least $200,000 a year, or you couldn't have invested at a seed funding level in those startups. So what does that mean? It means that the wealthy people who are already wealthy, who are already doing well, they are the ones who get to reap the rewards from the investment and from the vision and courage to make that investment. But with Title III offerings, which have only been available in the United States since 2016, now non-accredited investors can invest at a seed funding stage. If they find a Title III offering with a startup that they have the vision and that they can see the future success potential for that company, now they can invest too. That hasn't always been available, and it is now. So when you talk about a company like Proctor360 and like Ganga, like you said, this offering was about raising investor dollars to achieve something very specific, to produce an initial manufacturing order for this patent-pending 360-degree testing cam. Okay, and you could have gone a lot of different ways. You could have gone to angel investors. You could have taken a loan out on your house. You could have gotten, SBA financing. There's a lot of different ways you could have, come by that money, but you wanted to make it available, at an SEC regulated offering, by the way. There's nothing fly by night about it. The company has to register with the SEC, and the offering is regulated by the SEC. It's all above board. You wanted to be able to make that kind of investment opportunity available to non-accredited investors, and here it is. So, it doesn't get any better than that. If you haven't made your decision to invest in Proctor360 yet, guys, for anyone that's listening, you've only got a couple of days left to do it, and I hope that you do, because there's nothing else left when you talk about the vision, when you talk about the potential, when you talk about the value of the product. There's nothing else left but you taking action. If you want to be one of those guys who has a success story, you have to be willing to do that. And if you don't take action, then you don't get to be one of those guys that complains 5-10 years down the road and says, gosh, I wish I'd invested in Proctor360 when I could have bought it for a couple $100, for a couple bucks a share, but I didn't do it, and now they're, making $100 million or $200 million a year in revenue. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. This is the opportunity, and you can. And for the price of a decent night out on the town, you could be investing in this company. There are a couple of days left to do it, and I hope that anybody who's listening right now takes advantage of that. But I digress. Did I leave anything out? Kranthi and Ganga, let me know if I missed anything there.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, that really is. It's an opportunity that's limited in time, and we hope that anyone who sees the vision takes advantage of it, of course.
Absolutely. And by the way, we're talking about non-accredited investors, but accredited investors can invest in Title IIIs too. And just in case any accredited investors happen to be listening to this right now, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a challenge. Okay, if you're an accredited investor, you've got a couple of days left in the offering. Try something out. Throw $5,000 or $10,000 at this offering tonight. See what might happen. This is crowdfunding. This is how crowdfunding works. See what might happen in the next couple of days as this offering closes. You can move the needle. You want to be a market mover? You can do it on this scale very easily. Throw $5,000 or $10,000 investment at Proctor360's offering and see what happens over the next couple of days. Your investment, which would be a small number to you, could actually accelerate this to cap out the maximum fundraising goal for this offering, and it could seriously improve the position of Proctor360 as it goes into that first manufacturing order. So just a little bit of a challenge I wanted to throw out there. But to recap, we've got plans right now. Kranthi is in the process of putting together the wireframes and the tooling for the manufacture of the 360-degree head cam for the testing platform. The circuitry for that is being laid out now. We're talking about probably a 3-month time period once that stuff is complete for the manufactured order to be delivered and for the platform to be ready. So theoretically, we're talking about being ready for revenue generation in about 6 months' time. Would that be about accurate? I mean, of course, all this is projections right now, Ganga, but does that sound about right?
That's correct. And
Okay.
while we're not stopping in any way, we're also doing the customer acquisition and
Right.
making sure that we are giving possible demos. This is one of the tests is like as you mentioned, pilot test and other things we're doing, because there is a little bit of integration process which has to be done. So with respect to hardware and software, that we are able to do with our prototypes, and we are able to meet the requirements of the customers. The next step is to go in bulk and making sure that we are meeting the customer requirement. And also this will be kind of B2B and B2C scenario where we wanted to work with a lot of established businesses, and then once we standardize Proctor360, we wanted to work directly with the consumer so that they have the ability to have their exams to be delivered using Proctor360.
Right. And then on top of all of that, George Mason University has already thrown its hat in the ring, and starting May 1st, they're already going to be running a pilot program using the prototype headsets to test out this platform, because that's how excited they are about being involved with Proctor360's new technology. So if you guys, if we don't have any other questions here, we appreciate anybody who's been tuning in. It seems like people have been coming in and out there. And Rajesh, thank you for posting that great question in terms of the timeline and the ability to scale. This is a huge market, and there's virtually limitless potential there. Ganga, Kranti, do you guys have anything you want to mention before we wrap up today's webcast?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
I think we covered every aspect of it, Scott. And if still they have any questions, they can directly reach us, and our numbers and details are available on Proctor360.com, or they can go to startengine.com/Proctor360 and see all this. And I'm sure you are going to provide this updated video onto Proctor360 website as well.
Absolutely. We'll have later this evening, we'll have the entire webcast today posted as an update to the Start Engine campaign page, so that if you didn't get a chance to catch all of the video while we were doing it live, you can always go back to the Start Engine campaign page and watch it there, or through our YouTube channel also. And again, as Ganga said, if you have any questions that you think of later, you don't have much time left to invest, but if you have any questions, post them to the comments section of our Start Engine campaign page. That's at startengine.com/Proctor360. When you post comments there, we answer them, and then that information is available for anyone who's interested in investing who might have the same questions you did. And we've had some excellent questions posted there as well, so we also encourage you to read through those comments, because there's been some people who've really expressed an interest in the product and then made the decision to invest after reading our answers to those questions. So, one more time, the offering ends at April 30th. You've only got a couple of days left to make your investment, and it's all down to you. It's down to having the vision and the courage and seeing the direction this product could go, because it's not going to cost you that much to give it a shot. I hope that you will. I want to thank Ganga and Kranti for joining us, and wish all of you a very enjoyable rest of your weekend, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Scott.
All right.